Welcome back to another episode. Y'all know what time it is. This is the best time of the year. We are about to have the start of the NBA season. We are already into the swing of preseason. And y'all already know, when we want to do something big on this show, we want to have a conversation and get some insight about basketball. There's one person that we love to look to, and that's the homie Jason. Jason, how you doing today, brother?
I'm doing great. I'm excited. We're what 13 days, 12 days away from the season starting, and our two favorite teams are going to show down. And then I'm sure both sides will be overreacting to whatever the result is. It should be fun.
Look, I have a question though before we start off. Because we got to get into the Eastern and the Western Conference. For you, do you feel like if this game, as a Laker or a Bron fan, rather, does this game mean anything to you all at the start of the season, banner night?
I think it's way more important for the Lakers than it is for the Nuggets. I like the Nuggets could get their ass kicked in that game on Tuesday night, a week from Tuesday, and it just wouldn't change the way I feel about them at all whatsoever. If the Lakers get their ass kicked, or even worse, if they stay close and then lose close again, like they did in all of the games in the Western Conference Finals, I think that could serve to build a little bit more of a mental issue with the way that the Lakers feel from a confidence perspective. Because like the Lakers really threw a lot of great punches against the Nuggets in that series. They just could not out execute them in crunch time because Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic at this point are better shot makers than LeBron James and Anthony Davis are. And that ended up being the biggest and most profound difference in the series. I've had Laker fans be like, oh, they were close games. Like they could have gone either way. It's like, yeah, but they all went one way. What does that tell you? Like that tells you that team is better at that specific type of basketball. So like, I think there could be a confidence issue that forms there if the Lakers don't notch a win. But at the same time, like even if the Lakers lost, I wouldn't be overly concerned because like remember in 2020, it's like they lost to the Clippers on opening night, and then they lost to the Clippers on Christmas Day, and it ended up being this big thing. But they notched one big win against the Clippers right before the end of the season that kind of got the monkey off their back, so to speak. That's kind of the way I look at the Denver situation. Like I wouldn't worry so much, but I know that in that locker room and for Lakers fans, it will matter a lot for them to perform well and win on opening night.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think that the narrative stuff, the off the court, asking Austin Reeves and asking Anthony Davis about the matchups, Darvin Ham comments last year, Michael Malone, there's a lot of smoke kind of around the matchup. And what's funny to me is that, everything that you've been hearing about the Nuggets in preseason and camp is that, they are like relaxed, but even some of the commentary after the first preseason game is that they are almost walking around as if they know and believe this might be their league. But I think for them, that's not an arrogant. They're just like, they feel comfortable with themselves. So I'm really fascinated to see, because Porter hasn't played yet in the preseason game. Christian Brown didn't play last night. So if they get a rotation, they're starting five, you're going to get Christian Brown, Peyton Watson, Zeke Naji. And you know what's funny? Justin Holiday is getting a lot of playing time with the Denver Nuggets. And, you're probably familiar with Justin, but, a 6'6" wing athlete, didn't have a last good 2 years with the Mavericks and then obviously with the Hawks. But everything coming out of camp, Jason, is that, like, he is probably going to be a contributor this year. And especially if you know how the Nuggets like to play, Peyton 6'8", Christian 6'6", Justin 6'6", Zeke 6'11". They're going to have a lot of wings they're going to try to throw at teams. And so I'm actually really curious to see how they kind of balance out with this new LA Lakers team.
Yeah, they're going to be a different team. I think the Bruce Brown, like I like Christian Brown a lot. Justin Holiday is very thin.
Mm-hmm.
So he's not going to have the same type of physical advantage that Bruce had. Like it was specifically Bruce's strength and athleticism that was a problem for the Lakers backcourt. And it wasn't just D'Lo, it just most profoundly affected D'Lo. But like, I want to be clear for Lakers fans' sake, like that's not enough that Bruce Brown's out of the equation. I do think it helps. But at the end of the day, if they can't execute at the end of games, which Bruce Brown was a much smaller factor in, then I don't think it's something that they can close the gap on. That's why I've been keeping an eye on bigger picture storylines for the Lakers. But as far as Denver goes, like the bench was a train wreck last year.
Right.
So I don't understand why the Bruce Brown loss is the only thing really worth talking about as it pertains to the Denver Nuggets and their eventual ceiling, because their bench was a disaster last year. So like as it really pans out for me, like at the end of the day, Denver has this core five that knows how to play, that knows the way they want to play, and that they're capable of winning a championship. They're confident. They should be carrying themselves as a team. Like the the narrative surrounding repeat champions is real, and it's not a shot at any specific team. It's just the realities of how difficult it is to win back-to-back titles in the NBA
Right.
now. I mean, like, you have to understand, when the Lakers won the title in 2020, they were in a similar position. They kicked everyone's ass.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, the team viewed as their biggest rival, the Clippers, lost in embarrassing fashion. Anthony Davis was on the rise, looked like maybe the top. I had him at 4. Some people had him higher. Some people had him lower. LeBron was clearly the best player in the world. They were riding high, but then injuries, they don't repeat, right?
Right.
The Bucks in 2021, Giannis, clearly the best player in the world. It feels like they're ascending. Everything looks great, but then Chris Middleton gets hurt and they don't repeat. So, like, it's not a shot at the Nuggets to say that chances are they don't repeat. It's just the reality of the way the NBA works. Like, they are, like most teams, thin, meaning like a key injury and a downgrade at one position group could end up being what gets them beat. No, there is no team in the league like the Warriors that is so incredibly talented that they're miles above the league and they have huge margin for error to where KD can literally miss a playoff series and they sweep.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that sort of thing is not, that's not a thing that they can do anymore. And so I think they should carry themselves confidently, but I think every other team views themselves as capable of beating Denver as well. I don't think Denver intimidates everybody the way that like the KD Steph Warriors did, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think even with that Warriors team, they were in a situation where they had like an overwhelming advantage to where it made it so easy to comprehend the fact that they were just going to be repeat champions. As long as they had Kevin Durant on the roster, they weren't losing. And then you remember, obviously, that 2018-19 season, they get Boogie Cousins for $5 million. They had the best starting 5 of all time. And then it took Boogie getting hurt, KD getting hurt, and then Clay having to go down with an injury in the NBA Finals for them to lose. So, yeah, I mean, it's just, you never know, but I'm really excited for this upcoming season. Actually, have some particular questions about you for each team as we get into this. But Jason, I want to get started in the Eastern Conference. And so we're going to start from 8 and we're going to work our way up to 1 on who we think the top 8 teams in the conference are. And if you want, you can add in the teams that you might think going to be in a play-in scenario in this format as well. But if you look at the Eastern Conference and you look at your 8 seed, who do you think is going to be slotting in that spot to start the year off?
Right now, I got Orlando. I think they're kind of be like OKC was in the West last year, and it really just comes down to a couple of different things. Paolo Banchero getting that Team USA bump. In general, the diversity of shot creation they have, like Franz Wagner, Paolo Banchero. Franz Wagner represents like this big playmaking forward who can operate out of pick and roll and is a great passer and has the shot making. Then like Markelle Fultz kind of brings like a downhill athleticism element to their shot creation. And then Paolo Banchero is the matchup attacker. He's the guy that can work out of the post and out of ISO and attack smaller defenders. And then I really like Wendell Carter Jr. as a stretch 5 that allows them to operate in space. This team to me kind of fits the mold of the modern NBA basketball team in the sense that like they're just huge at every position and have a ton of aggregate ball handling and shooting. And so again, I think that in an Eastern Conference that's pretty open at the bottom, I think they're going to kind of rise above the pack and end up right around that 8 seed.
But that's so right now, just for perspective, I have Orlando, I think sitting at 12, but I even have, so the teams I even have in front of them right now are like the Pacers, the Raptors, and the Bulls. So here's my thinking with this. I feel like Orlando is still a little bit young in their process. Now, Paolo could for sure, Franz, Mo, they all take leaps. And then obviously with Markelle Fultz on the roster, a lot of people don't realize they had one of the best 5-man units in basketball when Markelle Fultz was on the court with them last year. Their net rating is insane. So there is a pathway for them. They also got a couple rookies this year that are coming that are going to be really good sleeper hits for them as well. So here's mine. So I have currently in my 8 spot in the Eastern Conference, I actually have the Atlanta Hawks.
Okay.
I just feel like they have to be able to put it together to get a playoff run and come into the year when they're going to have to win the playoffs in terms of getting into the play-in. They're going to have to win those matchups, but I don't know if that I don't feel like they can afford another year of a disappointment, at least making the playoffs outright, because I just don't know with the Trae Young timeline. They gave up 3 unprotected first round picks for DeJounte Murray. They got Hunter. They're reformatting. They're going to have Sadiq Bey at the 4s. They're going to have a John Collins now. I still think Clint Capella. They're going to have a plus roster, but man, I don't know. Like, do you even have the Hawks currently making the playoffs, or are they just kind of out of the race right now?
I'm at 7. I think the Hawks are going to take a little bit of a leap this year, and the main reason why is the realignment in a more traditional, like kind of 4-out 1-in spacing. So last year, John Collins was one of the very worst spot-up players in the league. He just could not convert kickouts into points, and so DeJounte Murray is a sneaky, really bad spot-up player too. And like DeAndre Hunter's only okay. And so when you factor that in with Clint Capella, who's a screen and roll big, they were operating as like basically a high volume pick and roll team that every team could guard 3-on-2. And it just like, and what's crazy is they were still, I want to say like they were like 8 or 9 in offense, if I remember correctly, in offensive rating last year. And that's in spite of the fact that they had such awful spacing principles. And so both Sadiq Bey and who's the other forward that they have?
Hunter?
No, not DeAndre Hunter. The other.
Are you talking about?
Other,
you're talking about the youngin.
Is Jalen Johnson?
AJ.
No, AJ Griffin.
Griffin.
Yeah, I think it's AJ Griffin. Yeah. AJ Griffin and Sadiq Bey are both significantly better spot-up players. They both can shoot and can attack closeouts. And so they're going to actually be lined up in much better traditional spacing. They can actually start running things like Spain pick and roll now because they'll have the ability to essentially remove John Collins from the dunker spot and turn that into a shooter who's relocating. I think they're going to go up a level on both ends of the floor just with their overall switchability on defense, with the space they have to operate on offense. I have them going up a level. The only reason why I had Orlando, so to give you an idea, like Toronto has the worst backcourt in the NBA, probably of any serious basketball team. Like Dennis Schroeder and Gary Trent Jr. are good basketball players, but that's probably the worst.
If that's going to be their backcourt, the rumor is they might be trying to put Scotty somewhere around there.
Yeah, I'm not super high on Toronto from that standpoint. The Chicago Bulls literally had DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, and Nikola Vucevic in the lineup, all for at a minimum 74 games. I think Vucevic played all 82. And that group, that unit, even with Patrick Williams on the floor, because Patrick Williams, I think, also played over 74 games. So all their core guys played basically the entire season. Their core lineups were negative, and they were below 500. So, like, to me, that is a recipe that has been proven to not be that successful. And it's actually wild to me that Chicago's running it back. So, like, I don't think it's asking too much for Orlando to supersede those guys. And then the last team you mentioned, who was the last team you mentioned that was ahead of Orlando?
Pacers.
The Pacers. I like the Pacers. Ben Mathurin's exciting young guard. You know, Tyrese Halliburton is one of my favorite young players in the league. Miles Turner just got a new contract. He's playing good basketball. They're a good team. But I think Orlando is actually more talented than them. And so that's just kind of quick reasoning. But yeah, so right now I have 8 Orlando and 7 Atlanta.
Yeah, so I think when I'm looking at Orlando, again, they can definitely take a leap. I'll be excited to see what they can do this upcoming season. It's not, I have them fighting to possibly be in a play-in this upcoming season. So, we'll have to see. But for 7 for me, I'm currently looking at the Brooklyn Nets. I like what they did. I like what it looked like after they got Mikal Bridges. I think having Dorian Finney, having Mikal, having maybe the DPOY this year, we'll figure out, if Nick Claxton can actually continue to make that leap defensively. But I think they have a good enough roster and a good enough cohesion with what they're trying to do to actually be a viable playoff team. Again, it's just kind of funky in the Eastern Conference because there's just not enough teams outside of the top 2 that I can stamp for sure, say I love the product they have on the court. I think the Miami Heat will get to them in a little bit as well. But I think that with what the Nets are going to be able to do, I think with the fact that they have another year playing in that system, I actually think they're going to be my number 17 coming into the season this year.
So I like Brooklyn from a talent standpoint in a lot of ways. They have a lot of players that I like individually, but there's 2 main reasons why I actually have them outside of my top 8. And the first one is their overall shot creation. It's Spencer Dinwiddie, who was the third best shot creator on the 2022 Dallas Mavericks. Okay. Like Jalen Brunson was clearly better than him. He was the one guy who kind of went down a level. And then you have Mikal Bridges, who probably is going to put up, 26, 27 points a game this year efficiently, but is not a good passer. That's not a strength of his. Like he's kind of like a tunnel vision scorer type. And then it's a huge drop off to probably Cam Thomas or Ben Simmons, who both are flawed in their own ways. Cam Thomas is capable of getting red hot, but also capable of taking a lot of bad shots and missing them and putting you in some tough spots. And then Ben Simmons, who like straight up is a non-threat to score the basketball in most cases. So like I'm worried about their offensive creation relative to the rest of the field. The second thing is on the defensive end, they have not, and this dates back to last year and this year, they have not been as imposing defensively as they should have been. Even when I was watching the Laker game yesterday for my show, and I was watching the film of it, I was so disappointed in Brooklyn's defensive intensity. Like they're this super switchable, super athletic team that has all these long athletic wings, and they're not even ball pressuring teams. Like they're going under picks. They're like letting D'Angelo Russell and letting LeBron James and letting Austin Reeves just settle into easy, wide open pull up threes. And I'm like, how is it that you're not trying to make this hell on earth for these guys? Like you guys should be switching everything and flying around and flying around in rotation and doing all this stuff. And they're just not doing that. And maybe that changes, but like this unit has never been as good defensively, and this dates back to last year, as they should have been. And so if you're not going to be that good defensively and you're that weak in shot creation, I just don't think they're a playoff team.
Yeah, I think they're going to have to pick it up. I think, in the playoffs versus the 76ers, they showed they had the capacity to do it. They just didn't have the manpower to beat that team. I don't think they were, with each other long enough either. But I'm curious. I do think now this is, again, a lot of this hinges on Ben Simmons. And maybe this is too much of me, like hoping that Ben Simmons is going to be able to go back to that 17, 8, and 8 player, be one of the best defenders in the league. They're going to have a lot of outside shooting as well. So, we'll see, how it ends up working out for them. But, so who's at 6 for you when you look at the Eastern Conference playoff standings?
I have the Cleveland Cavaliers. I'm lower on them than most people. By the way, these are my rankings. I should clarify. These are my rankings in terms of which teams I think are the best, not necessarily where teams are going to finish in the standings. Right. For instance, I have Miami considerably higher. Wouldn't be the least bit shocked if Cleveland finished above Miami in the standings, right? But my thing with Cleveland is this. They addressed one of their two biggest needs this summer, which was shooting, right? They brought in a really good shooter in Max Strus, another really good shooter in Georges Niang. The issue for me is like the actual thing that went wrong for them in that series. I went back for my Cleveland season preview, and I'm watching all the film, and I'm watching the Knicks series again, and I'm diving into the numbers, and I'm expecting to determine that shooting was the issue. Except for I look into the film and I'm like, like Evan Mobley in pick and roll was completely useless rolling to the basket. And the issue that they were having is Donovan Mitchell would call for a ball screen. Evan Mobley would come set it. They would have Julius Randle basically not quite trap, but kind of like show very high on the pick, which is leaving Evan Mobley going downhill wide open. Then Jared Allen would be in the dunker spot, and Mitchell Robinson would be kind of standing in front of him, kind of playing that middle ground. Yeah. And literally, Evan Mobley could not solve that. He could not make the floater over the top. He couldn't make the drop-off pass. He was really struggling navigating that like 2-on-1 going downhill. And the reason why is when you have a really good rim protector like Mitchell Robinson, who, by the way, kicked both of their asses in that series. Like, he was awesome. He couldn't navigate that. And because Mitchell Robinson is gifted enough to kind of athletic enough to be in two places at once, he was able to shut it down. I was looking up the numbers. Evan Mobley logged 10 roll man possessions in that series where he took a shot, and he scored one total point on them. He literally missed every single shot that he took in the short roll. He did not make a single shot in the series rolling to the basket. Like, that was the issue. And now here's the thing. Evan Mobley in the long run will get better at navigating those situations. Mm-hmm. But in the short term, the two big lineup makes them extremely easy to guard. And so fundamentally, when you build and that's just the one end. On the other end of the floor, Darius Garland was getting attacked all series. They were having issues with the 3-guard spot. So really, it's a core roster construct flaw, in my opinion, to go with 2 small guards and 2 bigs that can't shoot. And no matter how much shooting you put in the middle spot there, that's still going to cause problems for them in pick and roll. If you can guard the Cavs pick and roll 3-on-2 in a playoff series, you can shut them down. That's what the Knicks did. That's what I expect to happen again when they get to the playoffs this year.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. So I actually have the Cleveland Cavaliers at 6 as well. I think in a regular season setting, they're probably going to have the number 1 defense in the NBA again. I think their rim protection is just going to be elite. I think Donovan Mitchell could have another second team, first team All NBA season, good scoring volume there. But I think, like you, I was shocked last playoffs when they went down and lost 4-1 to the New York Knicks. The Knicks had one of the better teams in the NBA post All-Star break, but they have so many limitations offensively and even defensively. Again, if you're playing a 2 big lineup, like similar to what the Minnesota Timberwolves are doing, and I think what you're talking about, if your 4 isn't dynamic enough to be a decent level playmaker, especially out of that short roll, or even to be a good play creator for other people, then I think you're going to run into a lot of issues. And I think Evan Mobley, Jared Allen, neither one of them are great floor spacers. And again, I think Mobley will get better. He was getting better at the shooter, and then he'll figure that stuff out as he get a little bit older. But yeah, I don't have a lot of confidence that when it matters, that they're going to be able to execute at a high level. And again, Donovan Mitchell also disappointed. He career averaged 28 points per game in the playoff leading up to last year and kind of fell off the face of the earth, but a lot of that quickly in the defense that he was facing against as well. So I do think they're going to have a really good regular season. But again, just with the Eastern Conference, and I think because of the roster construction, and I don't think they have a real chance of winning a championship this next year. But, I feel like they have about a second round ceiling, but we'll see. So I got them at 6. Who do you have at 5 on your list in the Eastern Conference?
I went with the New York Knicks. And again, I kind of view them as more or less the same type of team as they had last year. Dante DiVincenzo is going to give them a little bit more point of attack defense, a little bit more spot up shooting. But the big thing for me is for Knicks fans, I believe in Jalen Brunson. I think as far as guys that are off the top tier, so once you get past the Shai Gilgeous-Alexanders and the Dames and whoever it is that you have in the top 15, I'd probably put Anthony Edwards as maybe the last guy in that list. There's a little bit of a drop off, and the next guy that I had there was Jamal Murray. I kind of viewed Jalen Brunson in that tier. I think he's one of those guys that's not a real superstar, but is capable of essentially doing what a superstar does in a playoff series in a certain capacity from a standpoint of offensive creation. I'm not worried about him. I actually think their defense is more or less good enough to compete. It's just they need to get something out of Julius Randle. And yeah, he was injured. I understand. But he literally is one of the worst playoff performers of his generation in small doses. And he hasn't been able to kick that yet. And so, to me, the difference between New York having a chance to actually have a puncher's chance to beat one of the better teams in the league and where they are right now, to me, is about Julius Randle.
Yeah, I wouldn't put you with money in that. Julius Randle in the regular season is one of the only players in NBA history. Do you know there's 3 players ever that have been able to do 24, 10, and 5 and shoot 38+% from 3? It's Julius, Jokic, and it's Larry Bird.
Wow.
So Julius has these seasons where he's able to have these crazy numbers and high efficiency. I think he shot 8 threes per game last year in the regular season as well. So and I'll say this, aesthetically, Julius Randle is my least favorite player in the league. That's a high volume player. Just because
it's all bully ball.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't.
His jumper's kind of ugly.
Right. It's really stiff. He doesn't have a great IQ when it comes to his shot creation and all that. So again, this just to me speaks to how weak the East is, that I would have them agreeing with you at 5 just because they have so many flaws. And again, if you can just take advantage of them and pull their deep, I think that Julius Randle, Jalen Brunson, and then RJ Barrett, betting on them to be able to turn it around in a playoff series enough versus some high level competition. The shot making doesn't feel like it's going to be there. I think Jalen Brunson showed that he can do that at a pretty high level last year. Can't trust RJ Barrett. Can't trust Julio. Mitchell Robinson is strictly a play finisher. And, obviously they got some other players on the roster that I think are really good. I actually think Emmanuel Quickley could have another sneaker year this year as well. But yeah, I got them at 5, and this is like I think I have the Cavaliers, the Knicks, and even like maybe even my 7th team. I think I have them around the same tier right now.
Yeah, I do too. I would say that there's a drop off after Atlanta. And to be clear, that's the difference between the East and the West. Is like you have a road game in Atlanta this year. Like, you're the better team, you can beat them, but like if you don't bring your A game, you'll get beat. Like that's kind of the way I look at it from the standpoint of like good teams in the league. Is like, okay, if we don't get our shit together in this game, we're gonna lose. That to me is where I draw the line. Orlando is like right below that, where it's like we can bring our B game in Orlando and we might be able to get a win, right? In the Western Conference, you've got to go down to like 13 to get to there. Like it's like, oh, we're going to New Orleans. Well, we absolutely have to bring our A game. You know, like we're like that's where it gets different in the Western Conference, and there's definitely like I would say there's like a solid 10, 11 teams in the West that meet that criteria, and there's only 7 in the East. But I do think you go New York, Cleveland, Atlanta, and then there's like a break before my number 4 team. I have at number 4 the Philadelphia 76ers. Mainly. Here's the thing. One of 2 things is going to happen because we know Daryl Morey. He's either not going to trade James Harden, in which case James Harden's going to be back this year, and they did add Kelly Oubre, and Tyrese Maxey is going to get better, and Joel Embiid's not going to go for the MVP, so he's going to ease his way through the season so his knee can hold up, and maybe they get into the playoffs and maybe they're a little bit better. Or they trade James Harden for an increase on their championship odds, which is what Daryl Morey does when he thinks about trades, is he has a little algorithm that spits out a number, and if he puts in the players and it increases the number, he'll make the trade. So like if he sees some sort of deal out there for somebody like James Harden, then they can improve in that sense. And I would argue with James Harden was like, it's weird because he had these 2 all-time great playoff games, like 40-point playoff games with game winners, and then just absolute trash, awful basketball the rest of the playoffs. And so I'd almost argue that if they brought in even just like a useful, like if they even just brought in a guard who could shoot threes and defend, I would argue they're even a better playoff team than they are with James Harden because of how much he frequently struggles in those settings. And so, like, the way I look at it, like, even with all the turmoil, even with all the question marks, this is still going to end with them being a playoff team with a lot of firepower. And then you also have to factor in with Joel Embiid. He's suffered some humiliation, and humiliation typically...
About this last year? You're talking about 2018-19 or 2020, or what are you talking about?
Take your pick, man. but like he suffered some humiliation, and so I think especially now that he's won an MVP, I think he's going to start trying to work on what's going to get him over the top in the postseason. So I view them as firmly behind the other 3 teams I have above, but I think they're a threat at number 4.
Ooh, yeah. Well, number 4 right now, I actually have the Miami Heat.
Okay,
but a lot of this comes down to I trust Spoelstra, Jimmy, and Bam. Tyler Hero last year was one of the best closers in the NBA, even though people like to make fun of Tyler Hero. Like his shot making down the stretch of the clutch was really good last year. But having to rebuild without Strus, without Gabe Vincent, I know a lot of people are like, well, those are like your tertiary players. Like how much do they actually make a difference? But if you look at the way they were playing, the fact that they had so much outside shooting, and then Gabe Vincent, his ability to slash at times and also to be a nice little pull-up shooter, like there were some things that he just did that helped that team out and to balance out that scoring. And so they still have Caleb Martin, they still got Duncan Robinson, they still have Tyler Hero, so they still have like a decent rotation of guard. But Kyle Lowry's 37 years old. How much are you going to get out of him? So I think those 4 with Jimmy and with Bam. Then they got obviously some of the rookies that are going to be playing this year. And then on top of that, they're going to have Jovic that's going to play this year. So they have some talent. But I'm curious to see like how they're going to be able to put it together in a regular season to get enough wins. But I think I have them slotted at 4. But again, if we're talking like who I trust more in a playoff setting, then I would absolutely put them above the team that I'm going to have here at 3.
Well, the Miami Heat had a really bad shooting season last year.
Yeah.
All of their shooters shot well below their typical percentages. I saw a lot of people like, oh, the Heat are getting lucky making shots. They're getting lucky making shots. And it's like, actually, if you look back, they made shots last year in the playoffs. They made shots last year in the regular season. It was just this regular season where they didn't make shots, which threw off everybody's thing. And I'm a big believer, too, in like shot luck is a thing in a small sample size, but once you start seeing shot making over a large sample size, it's probably real. And I think it's kind of a loser mentality to be like, oh, they got lucky, you know, like it's like they keep getting open shots and they keep making them. You got to get them out of rhythm somehow, right? And like I think those things are all intricately connected. But like as far as their depth goes, if you really think about it, you lost Max Strus and lost Gabe Vincent. You added Josh Richardson and Tyler Herro. That's kind of the way I look at it from the playoff setting. Josh Richardson is a very different type of player than Max Strus and Gabe Vincent because he's not as much of a knockdown three-point shooter, but he is a better slasher, and he actually does have a decent little pull-up mid-range shot. And I think he's a better defensive player than both of those guys. So I think Josh Richardson is going to be a useful player for them. Nikola Jovic as a forward, again, he was a rookie last year, but he had a good tournament in FIBA. I actually think he's going to play a lot this year too. So like, again, they didn't make the improvement you were hoping they'd make this year, and maybe they end up making a trade at some point. But like, I still think Miami's going to be, you know, I still think they're going to be every bit the threat that they usually are.
Yeah, people slept on Jimmy Butler's season last year, but a lot of people didn't realize he was second team All NBA and had basically the best year of his career as well. So, you know, Jimmy plays 67 plus games, Bam plays 70-something plus games. Then, you know, I think their floor is going to be really good. But so at 3, I actually have the Philadelphia 76ers. So we don't need to dive super deep into them because you already talked about them. But look, they're going to have one of the best players in the league. I think I had him as the 6th best player in the league coming into this season. I think he's one of the best floor rangers in the regular season setting. We're probably going to get another 30, 10, and 4 season from him on really good efficiency. He's going to be one of the best anchoring bigs in the regular season. Tyrese Maxey, James Harden, if he's there. If not, they're going to have role players stepping into that spot. Tobias Harris, PJ Tucker. And then, you know, they're going to have a nice roster. Like, they're going to have a nice collection of players on that team. And I think the coaching, Nick Nurse, I think they're going to also enhance that. So I don't really see them dropping off too much in the regular season. But playoff, then that's a different discussion. So we had the 76ers. I talked about them there. So this is really, for me, a little bit of the harder part. So to make this a little quicker for the Eastern Conference, who do you have at 2 and 1? And what was your reasoning for having a certain team at 2 and a certain team at 1?
So to be clear, I actually have in my power rankings for my show, the Nuggets are going to be number 1. And one of the main reasons why is because, like,
in the Eastern Conference?
No, overall. I'm going to have the Nuggets overall. So what I'm saying, like, because I kind of view those 3 teams as kind of like those are the 3 championship favorites in Vegas. Those are the 3 teams everyone talks about. So like, when I look at Milwaukee and Boston, they both have these big question marks, right? Like for Milwaukee, it's point of attack defense. That's the big red flag for them. Then for Boston, it's still the same red flag. Like every year they keep bringing in more ball handling and more shooting to help Jason Tatum, but then it still ends up in Jason Tatum's hands at the end of the game, and he's still the guy that has to determine who wins. And so, like, as talented as Boston is, and here they are again, the most talented roster in the league, probably even more talented than they've been in the last few years, and it still is like, can Jason Tatum execute in the half court of these late games, right? So, like, whereas Denver, I know what their question marks are, and I already know they are a championship team, you know? Mm-hmm. And so that's why, like, I view both of these teams, Milwaukee and Boston, as flawed. They're both going to have a great punch. Like, their ceilings are both super, super high, but I think they both are flawed. And when I look at their flaws, which flaw is easier to overcome? Point of attack defense can be overcome, in my opinion, with schematics and with an elite backline. And, you know, like the other thing too is like literally just making specific adjustments to throw a specific team out of rhythm, right? Whereas with elite half court defense, there's no coaching that up. You can't coach Jason Tatum into becoming a player who can be a half court surgeon. He either is or he isn't. And so from that standpoint, like, I ended up going with a slight edge to Milwaukee. Ironically, I think Boston is equipped well to cause Milwaukee problems with all of their point of attack defense and their ability to spread them out. But in terms of the in a vacuum ultimate ceiling, give me Dame and Giannis and everything that they bring as like a two-way duo. Give me that over what Boston brings to the table.
Yeah, so I actually have Milwaukee at 2. Again, mostly this is just regular season and Boston at 1. Again, regular season, I think Boston's going to be lights out. Like, I think
they'll win the conference. I agree.
Yeah,
in the regular season.
Yeah, I think they're going to run through people. I don't think. Do you think anybody has a better top 7 in the NBA than Boston?
No, and that's the thing. I literally said this on my show yesterday. Like I had a mailbag question. Someone said, "What are the teams you expect to underperform?" And I actually put Milwaukee as one of the teams, not because I expect them to underperform in the postseason context,
Yeah,
but Milwaukee's suddenly really thin. In like
yeah,
one injury to one of their core players could cost them a lot of regular season games. And
yeah.
Boston still has all these different looks they can go to. So I actually think Boston's going to run away with the conference in the regular season. I bet you they
Mm,
win. I bet you they have the 1 seed by like a 5-game gap over the rest of the field.
wow. Do you think they win 60 games this year? I mean,
I'm
that's
gonna go no. I'm gonna go no just because of how deep the league is. Like win totals to me are
right,
100% a reflection of the depth of talent in the league, not how good your team is. So like
right.
I shouldn't say 100%, but mostly an indicator of that. Like Denver last year was clearly the best team in the West, and what did they win? 55 games or
53,
53 games? Yeah,
53.
like
Yeah,
yeah, 53 games, and they were clearly better than everybody. So like to me, it's just has a lot to do with the fact that the league is deep and night in night out you can catch some L's. So, like, I think Boston probably ends up around 55 wins, if I had to guess.
okay. All right. So that closes out our Eastern Conference standings. Again, I had Atlanta. I had the Nets at 7, the Cavs at 6, the Knicks at 5. I had the Heat at 4, the 76ers at 3, the Bucks at 2, Boston at 1. You want to go through your 8 through 1 in the Eastern
Yep, I
Conference?
had Orlando at 8, Atlanta at 7, Cleveland at 6, New York at 5, Philly at 4, Miami at 3, Boston at 2, and Milwaukee at 1.
Look, well, all I know is for my Paulo Banchero propaganda, if they make the AC, that's going to help me out a lot. All right. So we got Western Conference. Jason in the loaded West with, I legitimately think there are 11 surefire playoff level teams in the Western Conference with the 12th, like tertiary, just missing team. Who do you slide in at 8 overall in the West?
Was your tertiary, was your 12 the Houston Rockets? Is that what it was?
No, it's the Jazz.
The Jazz. Okay, gotcha. So you had the
I
Rockets
think
at
that,
13 then? Or do you have
yeah,
the Rockets higher?
no, I have the Rockets at 13. I got the Blazers at 14, and I got the Spurs at 15. And I was torn about the Rockets, but
Spurs below
Jason,
the Blazers.
well, here's the thing: if the Blazers stand pat, they're not going to have like a
Oh yeah,
horrible
I guess you're
roster.
right. I guess you're right because I
You
think they
know,
kept Malcolm Brogdon too, didn't they?
yeah. So they have Malcolm Brogdon. They're going to have Scoot with Anthony, with Shaden, with DeAndre Ayton, with Jeremy Grant. So like, you know what I mean? They just
Yeah,
have
you
like a
won me
lot of.
over. You won me over. They might fire sale at the deadline, and get rid of Jeremy Grant and get rid of Robert Williams and get rid of Malcolm.
Right.
But yeah, I think I'm with you there. I ended up going with the Sacramento Kings at number 8. Um,
Woo-hoo!
I
Hey,
dropped them.
Sacktown, be mad at
I,
you.
I dropped them way down for a couple of different reasons. One, I think a lot of other teams in the West got better and they did not. For instance, the Lakers got better and deeper in the regular season. The Suns got better and deeper in the regular season. The Warriors, in my opinion, got better than they did last year, not just from a talent standpoint, but also from a culture standpoint. The Clippers, Russell Westbrook is actually a really good fit with them. I think they're going to approach the season more seriously from the standpoint of load management. The Thunder adding Chet, that's a significant improvement in talent, and they're all young players getting better. The Mavs revamped their front line. Like they all got better, and the Kings basically stood pat. I really like Sasha Vezenkov. He's a really interesting lefty forward that kind of can run a lot of the similar stuff that Sacramento runs. I like that team. I thought what Malik Monk and De'Aaron Fox demonstrated in the postseason was a real asset in their ability to beat people off the dribble and generate rim pressure and generate quality shots. But at the end of the day, the rest of the conference got better and they didn't. And the Kings had the best injury luck last year out of the entire league, which was a significant factor in them having the third best record in the Western Conference. So with them having all their guys available for the most part, they still finished third in the West. I think they're going to take a significant step back in the regular season. And I think all of those teams that I mentioned are better playoff teams right now.
Yeah, that's tough. So I have an 8 currently. I have the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Okay.
Um, but I think they're going to trade Cat at some point in time. I don't know like when they do it, and maybe they don't do it this year, but they're going to have Mike Conley, Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels, Kyle Anderson, Rudy Gobert, Carl Anthony Towns. And for me, I have an absolute, it's like, you know how you have basketball players, Jason, that you just love that are like role players?
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I
One of my
love his
favorite
fit.
point of attack guys. Yeah, love him.
Yeah, great screen navigator. You know, If he can hit his shots at a high enough level, I think he's going to be a really good player. I think that's a player at the deadline that if I'm one of these contending teams, I'm like, look, I'll throw you some assets for a 6'6" combo guard.
You don't think they're going to keep him though?
Well, my thing is like it depends on how they're doing. Like if they're doing really well, maybe. But here's the thing: it's cheap. It's a cheap. He's young, so he's like 24 years old. So I understand why they would. But I'm saying if I'm a contender, like for instance, if the Lakers had Nickeil Alexander-Walker at their POA, like that to me, that fundamentally changes your defense. Like having him with Anthony Davis. So
man, you got me. Now I'm thinking I want that trade. That's a great idea. I like where your head's at, Swipa.
Yeah, no, I love them. But then Naj Reid too. So I have them at 8 right now. Again, take Cat off the court. Rudy, Anderson, Jaden, and Edward with Conley. I think that's one of the best 5-man units in basketball. I think that's enough defense with Anthony Edwards and Jaden McDaniels, and then you have Rudy at the back line as well. Some decent shooting. You got a nice little playmaker at the 4 with Kyle Anderson, and then obviously Karl Anthony Towns, slot him in, 25 and 10, whatever else. So I think they're going to be really, really good in the regular season when they're healthy and all put together.
Yeah, I had the Wolves at 9. And they actually cracked my top 20 in my power rankings. I think I can't remember exactly where I had them, but I had them in there. And my thing with the Wolves is like, I think they have the potential to be the best defense in the league. And I like literally that Rudy Gobert with Kyle Anderson lineup with Jaden McDaniels, Anthony Edwards, and even if you throw Nickeil Alexander-Walker in there, by the way, that group barely played last year. So like that, when I think of those 5 guys together and what they could do to teams in terms of just basically strangling them, and then the leap that Anthony Edwards is taking, the thing with the Wolves is like, I want to put them higher on the list. Cause like when I think about the Wolves, I get so excited. I'm like, this team's going to be so much fun to watch. They're going to be so hard to beat. They're going to be so much fun. I just have a hard time putting them above specific teams that are above them for one reason or another. It's like the Mavs, for instance, and I have the Mavs at number 7. And like, I've had a lot of people like, how could you have the Mavs at number 7? They're so bad, all this kind of stuff. And like, I'm not disagreeing with you, but it's Kyrie Irving and it's Luka Doncic. And like, if they literally just build a semi-coherent defense around them, they could be a significant playoff weapon. And so even though I think the Mavs are more than likely a lower end play-in team, meaning like they probably finish around 9 or 10 in the standings, I see them as a team that's capable of beating anybody in the first round. Do I think the Wolves can beat Golden State or Phoenix or the Lakers or Denver in a first round playoff series? I don't. And so that's why I have them below them in the standings, because I think like they're going to run into teams like Golden State and LA, for instance, who are just going to be able to defend at a similar rate while being significantly better half-court offenses, right?
I don't know.
And then
if Rudy Gobert was over that playing game,
here's the thing with the Lakers. They at that point were giving the absolute bare minimum to try to win that game. And then finally they're in the middle of the third quarter. They're like, all right, fine. Like, we'll do this. Like, the Lakers were the most frustrating team to watch last year from the standpoint of waxing and waning effort. Like, there's a very specific reason why their first 2 series followed the exact same pathway of winning game 1, getting blown out in game 2, blowing them out in game 3, barely winning game 4, getting blown out in game 5, and then blowing them out in game 6. Literally both series followed the exact same pathway. And it's because that team literally like showed up to the gym one night and was like, we're going to bring it today. And then the next night they'd be like, never mind. And then they played it too cool for school against the Nuggets and got their ass kicked. So there you go. But like, but at the end of the day, like I'm ranking mine maybe a little different from yours from the standpoint of regular season versus playoff potential. But I ended up putting the Mavs at 7 because of their potential playoff ceiling. And again, like I tell everybody this, don't overreact to 1 year of results. Okay.
Yeah.
Everyone thought the Warriors were bad because they missed the playoffs in 2021. But all you had to do was literally bring Clay back and swap out like 2 role players that were lower IQ guys to higher IQ guys. Bam, they win a championship, right? Like the Lakers, LeBron and AD are washed. They can't win anymore. They suck. Okay, we turn Russell Westbrook into a couple of solid role players and Austin Reeves takes a leap. Now they're back in the Western Conference Finals. So like before we get this, Luka Doncic and Jalen Brunson made it to the conference finals and beat a 1 seed. Then they lost some role players and became a dumpster fire. They've swapped out some role players, brought in some athleticism. They've looked atrocious in training camp so far. Let's be clear about that. And by the way, I did make this list before training camp. But in theory, if some things break right for them with the role players, don't think that they can't be right back in the Western Conference Finals. That's the type of talent that Luka Doncic is.
Yeah,
and that's the type of talent that Kyrie is.
But even that year, the Western Conference was hurt. And then they also played against a fraudulent Suns team that crumbled down the stretch of that series. And so even like I think they can do it. But here, this is my thing, Jason. I got them at 9 right now.
Okay.
Like, playing 9. They're starting Derek Lively and they're going to start Olivier. They're going to start 2 rookies.
I don't think they're going to start them. I think they're going to start Powell and Josh Hart Josh Green when they actually get to real games. That's what my theory is.
All right. Well, even if I like Josh Green. Like he's a nice 2-way player. Like I think he's going to be really good wing. But here's the thing, man. Like, so if you have them at 7, then you had at 8, you had the Kings.
I had the Kings at 8, and then I had the Wolves at 9.
There's somebody else that's missing in this list that didn't make the playoffs that I'm kind of curious about. All right, hold on. Don't jump.
I had them further back. I think I had the Pelicans at 10.
That all injury related for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's just really difficult to even project what they're going to be like with Zion.
Yeah.
They couldn't even beat OKC at home in a play-in game. Like, I'm just not as high on the Pelicans as everyone else. I think that Brandon Ingram and CJ McCollum are kind of a weird duo of shot creators. They're clearly better when Zion's trying to create shots for them. But at the same time, I do believe in Brandon Ingram as a late game shot creator. But then, like, how does that mesh with Zion in the big picture and the limitations that brings defensively? Like, I just think the Pelicans have a lot more question marks than the other teams. And I don't know. I just believe in the teams that I have above them more.
Well, no, I also have the Pelicans out of it, and all has to do with playoff, like all with the injury stuff. So it's not about like talent. Now again,
what's the other team you're thinking of? What's the team that you were thinking of?
Well, so you have so what you did is you have the Timberwolves at 9, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think that would be the team because that means the other teams are still in there. So I think that's the team that you left out. So yeah, so here's the thing: the Pelicans for me are at 10 as well, but Jonas, Zion, Brandon, Herb, or Trey Murphy, and CJ McCollum, one of the best 5s in the NBA. Remember, starting last year, Jonas Valanciunas was shooting like 44% from 3 for a while, so he was shooting extremely well.
He's good. He's a good player.
And then again, they're going to have Dyson Daniels, Trey Murphy off the bench. Like they just have like a lot of really good assets, but again, I just don't believe they're going to be able to stay healthy. So the Mavericks for me are not in it, but at 7, I actually have the LA Clippers.
Okay.
Why? Again, this is mostly regular season for me. I don't know how much the Clippers, relative to everybody that's ahead of them, are going to try in the regular season and like what they're going to be able to give consistently. Now, if you ask me like in a playoff matchup, Kawhi, Paul George, maybe James Harden at some point in time, if they're playing against somebody, I think they can beat almost anyone. But I don't know how much you're actually going to be able to push. If everybody is healthy ahead of them, what are they actually going to be able to do over the course of a regular season that's going to be, I think, of the same value as what they will. So, I have them at 7 right now, but I can easily see them being able to make it to the Western Conference Finals this next year as well, if they're healthy.
The Clippers conversation is so annoying. I have them way up at number 5. But it's like, it's not even possible to have a serious conversation about the Clippers because like literally 3 of the last 4 seasons, 3 seasons in a row, they've been incapable of keeping both of their stars on the floor for a whole playoff run. Like literally it happens every single year. And the one time the two of them were together, they flamed out pretty spectacularly. So like, again, you can't, on one hand, you can't write them off.
Right.
Because we literally saw Kawhi outplay KD for basically almost 2 games before he hurt his knee. Right. And like, I don't know that the Clippers would have won that series, but they might have. Like they might have.
With just Kawhi?
With just Kawhi. They might have. I'm not saying they would have, but they might have.
Do you think, I think there's an argument as of right now that fully healthy, I think Kawhi Leonard might be the second best playoff performer in the NBA. Some people make an argument for 1. I think he could be the second best player in a playoff setting because of his strength, rim, the shooting, mid-range, and then defense. I think when he needs to turn it on, I think he might be it.
I'd still go Jokic 1. I'd probably go Steph or Giannis 2. I'd probably go Steph 2. I'd probably go
You think Giannis?
Giannis, Luka 4, and then I'd probably go Kawhi at 5 in terms of healthy playoff performers.
Well, let me ask you this.
But I think he's demonstrated that he's like, if you had two equal teams and Kawhi's 100% healthy and guaranteed to finish the series tomorrow, you take him over KD, right?
Well, so this is my question though, Jason, with him is he's healthy. He scores at the same rate more efficiently than Luka, than Giannis, and even than Steph. He's a more efficient shooter in the playoff than all of those players, except for Steph, obviously, on the ball.
But he's not close to the playmaker all those guys are, though. Like, not even close. Not in the same universe. And Kawhi's he's turned himself into a perfectly acceptable, slightly below average playmaker. But like, he's just like, to me, it's over the course of a 7-game series. Like, for instance, Kawhi torches him in game 1, right? Over the course of the 7-game series, when adjustments take place and they start to try to run him off his spots and double teams and things along those lines, he becomes less effective in a way that like some of the more half-court surgeon type players become more effective. And like, I don't think it's a secret that, I mean, here's the thing. 2 years in a row, Luka kind of pushed the Clippers to their brink with significantly less talent, in large part because Luka was a better half-court shot creator than both Kawhi and Paul George. And like, again, they won those series, but they won those series because they were monumentally more talented than the Mavericks were.
I mean,
but
Luka like incredible 2020, 2021 as well.
He was good. He was really, really good. But he should have put that should have been a sweep. Like, that should have been a sweep. Again, I'm not hating on Kawhi. I think he's right there with those guys. As a matter of fact, like I've just said, I think he's a top 5 player when he's healthy. But I ranked him at 10 or whatever in my player ranking, or 9 or something in my player rankings, because like, how do you even account for that in a list like this? And that's the thing. Like, I have the Clippers at 5, but like if they're 100% healthy and ready to go, like I might pick them over the Warriors, right? You know, something like that. Over the Suns? But I don't think so. But I'd give them. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if they could win. Like, again, like they're that team that no one talks about for good reason, because they flame out every year. But like, if they won the title this year, and like we were sitting here listening to Kawhi giving a parade speech in July, or in late June, you don't think we'd be sitting down like, no, they have. Of course they did. Like, they have all this talent. Like, of course they can win. You know, like everyone knows what the Clippers can do. It's just they probably won't. That's pretty much the Clippers for you. I had at number 6 the OKC Thunder.
Whoa!
Yeah, and I think this is a team that's going to take a significant leap this year. I actually think they'll finish much higher in the regular season standings. It potentially even get a first round home court advantage in the first round. I think Chet Holmgren's awesome. All the intel I'm hearing this summer is that the dude is like straight up superstar mentality, like just desperate to get better every single day, freakishly competitive, does all the right things, takes care of his body. You add him as essentially the first real vertical spacing threat that OKC has had in this era. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander continuing to take a leap after making first-team All-NBA for the first time. Jalen Williams has looked fantastic in preseason. Yeah. You know, Josh Giddey has had some moments in FIBA, and he obviously brings this other shot creation element. They brought, I can't remember his name. I'm gonna blank it, but there's the guard that they brought over from Europe.
You're talking about Micic.
Micic, yeah. Vasilije Micic or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's really damn good and going to be a useful shot creator off the bench for them. Lou Dort, in my opinion, is one of the top 5 perimeter defenders in the league that you can throw at the other team's best player. He's a fire hydrant that slides his feet really well and forces you to shoot over the top, which is a huge asset against big scoring wings.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think the Thunder are flat out good, and I think they're one of the most talented rosters in the league. And the only reason I have them down as far as I do is because their lack of experience and the fact that would inevitably come back to haunt them in any sort of playoff series against one of the better teams. But like, to me, they are just like the Oklahoma City Thunder circa 2011. Like, it feels like the year before the year where they go crazy, but don't be surprised if they do something wild, like beat the defending champs. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, Keisha Wallace off the bench, Isaiah Joe, Ousmane Dieng, Jalen Williams, and then obviously Kendrick Williams, who everybody's been trying to trade for the last several years, but they refused to let him go. Yeah, I mean, they're going to be really good. I don't have them making the playoff right now because
oh wow,
this is two I'm trying to figure out. So, well, let me do this then because I'm gonna tell you my number 16. So I currently had the Memphis Grizzlies at 6.
Oh shit! I must have made a mistake. I have the Grizzlies off my list. I think I
That's
had
what I
the
was.
yeah. I must have got, and this is my fault. I had it all combined into my power rankings, and then it got confused for the show.
Mhm.
So that's my fault. I think I had the Grizzlies. Actually, I can just pull up my YouTube feed and pull it up. Hang on. But I had the Grizzlies on my list. I'm not down on the Grizzlies from the standpoint of the regular season. I still think they're going to win a ton of games, but I'm pretty down on them as a playoff team because they're in the predicament where they're three of their four best players are guards and all small guards. And so with Marcus Smart, who's 6'3", Desmond Bane, who's 6'5", but has a 6'4" wingspan, and John Morant, who's 6'3" and a freak athlete, but he's super skinny, they almost have to play two bigs to compensate for their lack of perimeter size. And when you run two big lineups, you make yourself infinitely easier to guard in the playoffs. So they're one of those teams like Cleveland that I think is kind of misaligned from the standpoint of what they are capable of achieving in a postseason series. And yep.
Yeah, I
So
think.
okay, where I got it confused is I actually have I have the Grizzlies. I have the Wolves at 8, the Mavs at 9, and then the Grizzlies at 7 before I go to the Thunder. So that's where I got before I go to the
Okay, so we have the Mavs at the same. We have the Wolves at the same, and then you had who at
yes,
7 again?
I basically slide Mavs and Kings down and put Wolves and Grizzlies in there at 8-7. That's where I have it confused. Yeah, because
Right.
I had the Wolves at 16 in my power rankings and the Grizzlies at 15. So there you go.
Okay.
That's where I got it confused. Yeah, you did. I had my list all in one. I'm all thrown off, Cam. It's been a complete cluster f of a summer. I'm completely off kilter, man.
No, it's fine. It's cool. That's yeah. So I think the thing I have them at 6, again, regular season stuff. I think they're going to win a lot of games. They're still going to have maybe the best half court defense in basketball, depending on how Cleveland and some others do. Uh, but yeah, I mean, I'm not afraid of them at all in a playoff setting. They have one shot maker, and it's not John Morant.
It's not
Barely
John
gets his
Morant.
name. Yeah, it's not John Morant. Jaren Jackson Jr. They can't play spot. They can't put him in small because you can't put him small versus AD. You can't put him small versus Jokic.
He's the
I mean,
best
maybe like.
interior defender in the NBA, Cam. That you know that all the GMs know that. I mean,
Well,
I
to
don't
be
know what we're
fair,
doing.
I saw you say something about that. I don't think it's crazy to say that, but I think
I
that
think
like
it's absolutely crazy. I think Bam, AD, and Draymond are
Bam
all.
interior. Well, Bam best
I
asset
think
is in the.
when I think of interior defender, to me that's a defensive anchor. That's the guy that runs all your pick and roll coverages and the guy
Okay.
that's your main at rim defender. And like, quite frankly, I think Bam could be just a better straight up drop coverage big than Jaren Jackson. Like, I think
Well, yeah.
give me Bam, AD, and Draymond, and then like everyone else below that. Like, and I think AD is clearly number one, and I'd probably put Bam over Draymond at this point. But like to me, it's like, what are we? Other than regular season total blocks, what are we using as evidence that Jaren Jackson is the best interior defender in the league? Like, what the hell are we watching, man? I don't get it.
You know. Yeah, I mean, look, I get what you're saying. I think. Well, do you think Anthony Davis was as dominant in the regular season as he was in the playoffs this last year, up until the Western Conference Finals?
I thought Anthony Davis was the best defender in the world after the trade deadline.
Okay.
Like, he basically anchored the Lakers' second best defense in the league post deadline and did it
So
like.
thank
And again,
thank
you
you,
got to
Jared
count.
Vanderbilt.
Yeah, not necessarily. I think you got to
Right.
credit the fact that, like, as in terms of aggregate defensive talent, it's
Mm-hmm.
not that great, right? Like guys like Rui and LeBron and Austin Reeves and D'Angelo Russell, those are all only okay defensive players. It basically got held down by Dennis Schroeder, Jared Vanderbilt, and Anthony Davis, but all of it
Mm-hmm.
works because of Anthony Davis, especially when you factor in that Jared Vanderbilt and Dennis Schroeder are ball pressure players, and you can't have a ball pressure system like that without having backline help. So yeah, like I still think Anthony Davis is the best defensive player in the league by a pretty comfortable margin.
Oh boy, better the NBA better hope not. All right. So then we got. So I have at 6 the Memphis Grizzlies. At 5, you already give your 6? Because you said.
So 5 I have the 6 I have Thunder, 5 is where I had the Clippers. So what did you have at 5?
I got the Warriors.
Okay.
I'm scared of the Warriors. I'm not even gonna hold you, Jason. I'm scared of Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and CP3, all injury concerns. Every single one of them. So if they're on the court, they are probably going to have the best net rating of any five-man unit in the NBA. At least Steph, Clay, Wiggins, Dre, Looney. You throw CP3 in there, I don't know, but it's what I'll say. I think Steph Curry can have the best off-ball year of his career. I think people are immensely sleeping on how good CP3 is as a play creator, as a distributor. And I think right now everybody kind of down on him because, like, especially the playoff last year, the end of the season, and all that stuff. But if they're all healthy, they're going to be a nightmare to deal with. Now, defensively, I think they're going to struggle a lot because I think CP3, Steph, and even this version of Clay outside of Wiggins, like, I think you can take advantage of that a little bit. But I think that I have them at 5 right here. I think I can see them as high as 3, but I can also see them being in the play-in, but it really just depends on, like, how healthy they are. But obviously, if in the playoff setting, I think last year kind of threw me off versus the Lakers a little bit too. Like, Clay, CP3, like, Wiggins, like, is that enough at this point in the Western Conference if everybody is healthy to push past the second round? I mean, I just don't know. I don't know if it's a good enough a round step to do it at this point in time.
I had the Warriors at 4. I'm a big believer in their playoff ceiling. I would actually argue, even though I don't have them as close to Denver overall as the teams I have ahead of them, I actually think they're the team best equipped to beat Denver in a playoff series because they can actually play their big line up against them. The Draymond Looney front line does work against Denver reasonably well. And then also one of the best ways to punish Denver's specific defensive scheme is to have a real top tier pull up shooter, somebody that can really stretch them out and pick and roll, which Steph Curry can do. So, like, I actually think they're kind of really well equipped for the Denver matchup. But the problem is they're extremely poorly equipped for the Lakers matchup. Like, they would get their, like, I think they'd get beat by the Lakers again pretty handily from the standpoint of, like, they can't run their 2 big lineup against the Lakers, which forces them to go small, which then allows LeBron James and Rui Hachimura to just murder them in matchup attacking situations. So that's where I think they have their issues. The Warriors are an interesting team because, like, I actually think in the regular season they could have some real struggles for similar reasons, like where you're talking about. They can't weather injuries, right? They can't. They struggled on the road last year defensively and rebounding because they're not a big team and they're not an athletic team. And unless they get some sort of massive leap out of guys like Kuminga and Moody, then I don't think they're going to be that great of a regular season team. But they are a specifically dangerous type of they're a specifically dangerous type of playoff opponent, right? Like, and that's the thing is like matchups are everything. Like, and like I this is why I push back on statements like what you said earlier when you were like, oh, 2022 the West was weak. And it's like, it's not so much that the West is weak, it's about matchups. Like, Phoenix was a really good team all year, but they ran into a team in the Dallas Mavericks that was able to basically expose them with spread pick and roll.
I think it was a little weaker because the Nuggets were obviously, it was Jokic with Gordon and Barton and Morris, and there was no, like, Murray and Porter. I think the Memphis matchup, Ja Morant was out after game 3 or whatever else. So I think just from an injury standpoint, it was a different kind of West than it was maybe in previous years next year.
But that happens every year, though. Right. Like, because even last year, I'd be like, okay, the Clippers lost Kawhi and Paul George again. The Lakers were thrown together at the deadline. The Phoenix Suns were thrown together at the deadline.
And the Lakers were the best team in the NBA after the All-Star break. So I know they're coming to the playoffs.
No, I know. What I'm saying though is like theoretically, every year there's turmoil, there's turnover, and that sort of thing, and matchups do matter. Like, for instance, Denver. I've seen one of the most common talking points I've seen from Denver fans is like, oh, everyone said our defense wasn't very good. And then we put up this 111 defensive rating in the postseason, which is good enough to be a top 10 defense in the regular season, blah, blah, blah. But they literally faced 3 of the worst offenses in the entire NBA. Like, Minnesota, the Lakers, and Miami were 3 of the, I think, 12 worst offenses in the NBA. And specifically, all 3 of those teams were really, really bad pull-up jump shooting teams. which is the specific thing you have to be great at to beat Denver, which literally we saw Phoenix do twice through pull-up shooting, but Phoenix had all these other roster limitations on their front line and with role players. And so like, that's the whole thing with each NBA season. It's like, I say this to every single team. Like, you win, that's great. Don't rest on your laurels. Understand next time it's going to be harder. It's like the Bucks. You won a title in 2021. That was great. But guess what? You got to face Trae Young in the conference finals. You got to face, the Nets with an injured James Harden and Kyrie Irving out of the lineup. And then you faced a Phoenix Suns team in the finals that didn't have a top 10 player on it, right? Mm-hmm. Like every year's going to get harder. That's the beauty of the NBA is like, I promise you, if Denver repeats this year, it will probably be a harder version of what they did last year. They'll probably have to face a better offense at some point. They might have to face a pull-up shooter like a Dame in the NBA Finals or like a Steph Curry in the conference semis or the conference finals. That's the beauty of it, is like you have to constantly be improving. You have to constantly make changes because the rest of the league is improving alongside you. And matchups do, like, ask yourself this. Why is it that no team has even made a repeat trip to the conference finals or a repeat no team has even won their conference twice in a row in the last 5 years. The reason why is because every year it's this matchup gets this team beat. This minor injury throws off this dynamic. This specific trade throws off this dynamic. Like, we literally had LeBron James win 8 consecutive conference titles. And now we haven't had a single team repeat win the conference finals 2 years in a row in a half decade. Like that to me is an indicator of this constant turnover of talent and constant turnover of matchups and what everybody thinks each title is lucky. Everybody goes like, oh, the Nuggets got to face an 8 seed in the NBA finals. Well, they played who's in front of them. The Warriors got to face Luka in the conference finals, and then that not ready Celtics team that didn't have a star. The Bucks got to face Trae Young. Oh, the Lakers, they got to face the Miami Heat in the NBA Finals. If you go back through NBA history, every single year, you could make the case that the team got lucky. Literally every single year. The reality of what's happening is luck is an important part of the equation. Did you stay healthy? Did you catch good matchups? Did another really good team get knocked out because they caught a bad matchup? Like, these are all things that happen every year. And then when the dust settles, there's a different champion every year. That's kind of my point. It's like this is the kind of flux that takes place every year.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that like there's some truth to that. I think that the issue with the conference finals in the West especially is the Toronto Raptors were a completely different team when Kawhi left. The next year, the Lakers had arguably the best team in the league, and then you lose Anthony Davis, and then all the pieces around it, and hey, let's go all in on a third star and blow the team up or whatever else for no reason.
But that's not why they lost in 2021, though. They lost in 2021 because of injuries. Yeah.
So they lost because of injuries for sure. And then the next year, see the Warriors,
the Bucks in 2021.
Yeah,
but they got hurt. They pushed the Celtics to 7 without Chris Middleton. Like, that's my point, is you have to get lucky. You have to get lucky. You have to catch matchups. Like, for instance, like I'm Denver is my championship favorite. I have them at number 1 in my power rankings. If I had to pick one team, I would pick Denver. But I think it's far more likely that one of the other 29 wins because of this turnover, because of matchups. Again, I guarantee you every Denver fan looks back at the 2021 and 2022 Western Conference as fluky for one reason or another. Oh, Dallas made it to the conference finals. Golden State never had to face the strong version of Denver. But that's what happened last year too. They got to face 3 bad defenses or 3 bad offenses, and they were one of the worst defenses for a championship contender in NBA history. Like,
did he have a bad offense in the playoff last year?
The Heat were a bad offense in the regular season.
Oh, the playoffs.
And so were the Lakers. And so were they were all bad. Like, Minnesota, like, you're going to put up good offensive or good defensive ratings against Miami, against the Lakers.
Jimmy Butler put up 56 points versus the Bucks. Wow.
That's a great point. Right. Because the Bucks and the Celtics pee down their leg every single day of the year. The Heat keep getting through. Like, that's what's so cool about it is literally, like, that's what's so big about the Dame acquisition is like everyone got in front of Jimmy and peed down their leg every single year. And Dame is supposed to be the guy that goes, actually, screw you. I'm better than you. I can do this. You know what I mean? But like, again, like I think I say this to Lakers fans too all the time because they get all caught up in their, because Lakers fans, oh, like we added all this depth and like we were in all these clutch games, blah, blah. I'm like, did you get better at XYZ? Because if you didn't, Denver's going to beat you again. And like, but at the same time, like the Lakers match up extremely well with Phoenix because they can do to Phoenix a lot of the physical things that Phoenix can't do to other teams, right? And so like again, matchups play a huge role in this stuff, man. Like they really do. Like matchups and luck and injuries and a random team getting knocked out. Like how nice is it that like Boston straight up didn't have to play Milwaukee last year? Now it didn't matter because they still peed down their leg against Miami, but like those are the kinds of breaks that you catch. Oh, this top tier contender got knocked out. As a Nuggets fan, how often were you thinking about, okay, when we get out of this mess, we've got Boston or Milwaukee waiting on us at the end of the day? The two best teams in the regular season that both were head and shoulders above the league all year. And then suddenly you win the conference and it's like, wait, Jimmy did it again? And now we're playing the Heat and we're gigantic favorites and we're going to win every game by double figures except for game 2. Like that's kind of what I'm talking about. Is like, you have to catch breaks and there's no shame in that. And every NBA championship team has caught a break. And like, I wish fans would just admit it. Like how nice was it, Lakers fans, in 2020 that Steph and KD were on their damn couches while you were winning the title? Like they were on their damn couches. You were in Disney and Steph and KD were on their couches. You got lucky. 2019, like literally Kevin Durant gets hurt in the finals. So does Klay Thompson. The Raptors got lucky. 2018, you're down 3-2 to the Rockets. Chris Paul gets hurt. The Warriors got lucky. Like it's such a huge, it's a huge part of the deal.
Is I can go on a rant with the Warriors.
No, you hear me. Draymond suspension, 2016, 2015, the Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving injuries. Like it's one thing after the other, time and time again. Like even the 2014 series where the Spurs kicked the Heat's ass. Like there was that weird moment where the Heat looked like they were about to win game 1, and then the AC shuts off and LeBron cramps up. Like it's weird. Like my point is like, never feel too high, never feel too low. There is a luck element here. There is a matchup element here. You do have to, like, every team that wins the title goes into the next summer thinking we're about to run the league, and then they don't. So like at a certain point, we got to read the writing on the wall. That's my point.
Yeah, and I think we talked about this a little bit before, but I think well, hold on, let's get to this because we need to get through the rest of this list. So who do you have at 4? Do 4 and 3. Who are your 4th and 3rd best teams you think in the West this year?
So I have the Warriors at 4. I think they're a clear tier. So I have the top 6 teams in the league, in my opinion, are Denver at 1, Milwaukee at 2, Boston at 3. I have the Lakers at 4, the Suns at 5, and the Warriors at 6. I think the Warriors are clearly a level below the other 5 teams. I just have them on that tier out of respect for Steph Curry and the fact that they still have the same starting lineup that won the title 2 years ago, right? But I think the Suns Lakers are really close to each other. And I gave the edge to the Lakers because I believe in a league this stacked at the top that the separators are going to be the little things: continuity, commitment to defense, leadership, coaching, injury luck, those sorts of things, right? And which team do I trust to defend and play harder night in and night out? The Lakers. You know, like which team do I think is more well coached? I actually think Darvin Ham is a better playoff adjustment coach than Frank Vogel. Like the Frank Vogel is a really limited offensive coach. Now that might not even matter with the types of guys that they have. In terms of matchup versatility and stuff, I give a slight edge to the Lakers and their ability to play different styles. The Suns are incredibly reliant on pull-up jump shooting. So those are the reasons why I'm giving a very, very slight edge to the Lakers. But I also wouldn't be surprised if the Suns kicked everybody's ass and won the title this year. So I'm not hating on the Suns. When I'm splitting hairs among teams that are close at the top, I give a slight edge to the Lakers over the Suns.
Yeah, so again, regular season for me, I have the Kings at 4 and the Lakers at 3. I think the Kings, they have, and I talked to people about this before. So typically, NBA history, 2 All-NBA players, a young roster, a host of role players, a coach of the year, and a great home court advantage. typically that leads to a lot of regular season wins. Now, playoffs, that's a whole nother conversation. They might not make it out of the first round again. But that just goes to show you how good the Western Conference is at the top. Okay, you got to play Jokic, that's an L. You got to play LeBron, that's probably an L. You got to play Steph, that's an L. You got to play Steph, that's an L. You got to play Kawhi, that's an L. That's 5 teams. So like, again, there's no shot to them. It's just, you say the best you've got is De'Aaron Fox. Well, you're not beating none of them dudes. I'm sorry. You're not beating any of them. So I think regular season, they'll be really good. And then at 3, I actually have the Lakers. But here's the thing. Here's the problem, Jason. LeBron James isn't playing a lot of games. AD probably won't play a whole bunch of games. I don't care about role players all that much. I mean, Austin Reeves is a good player. Rui Hachimura is a good player. I think the issue with the Lakers that I have is their ceiling is dependent on their defense. And even with Gabe Vincent and these additions of Taurean Prince and Cam Reddish and Jackson Hayes and all that kind of stuff, like, Matt Christie, I think can be a good player. Good, solid young player. But I think that the Lakers, I think their defense is going to be elite again. I think that they're going to be a really good playoff defense. Regular season, we'll see how much they actually care about it. I think if they push, I can see them getting the 3 seed or something like that. I think they're probably going to be my 3rd best team coming out of the West this next year. I think it's going to be a toss between them and the Warriors when it comes down to punch. But right now, I just think they just have the best collection of talent in order to get that done. And for 2 and 1, I actually have the Suns, and then I also have the Nuggets. And we can talk to them a little bit. But, man, did you get a chance to watch that Suns game versus the Pistons the other day?
I did. I watched the first quarter when they hung 46 points. It just Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, and Kevin Durant attempted 21 shots in that game, and 15 of them were pull-up jump shots.
Right. I know.
So, like, that to me is like, I just have seen that build with the Suns last year, and then they started missing pull-up jump shots and they lost. I saw that build in the Brooklyn Nets, and then they started missing pull-up jump shots and they lost. And so, like, it's just there's no amount of regular season success that won't alleviate that concern for me after what I've seen. Like, Kevin Durant shot 60% on pull-up twos during the regular season last year. 60% on pull-up twos. And then he made in the mid 40s against the Nuggets. So, like, at the end of the day, and then they lost. And so that's the thing. And like, I'm higher on the Lakers than you as a regular season team. I'm not as high as most Lakers fans are as a playoff opponent, because I don't think they unless LeBron James and Anthony Davis both monumentally improve as jump shooters. I just can't put them on the same level as Denver. I just can't, because no matter what, they're the best defense. They can do all these things and keep games close. Keep games close, but then they can't freaking score when the game slows down at the end. And then teams like Denver with Jokic and Murray make a bunch of shots and then they lose. So I'm lower on their playoff ceiling, barring a trade or a massive improvement from LeBron or AD. But during the regular season, they're just going to be really good. Like, they legitimately have talent up and down the roster. They're young, they're athletic. They've got a ton of skill. Like, LeBron and Anthony Davis, even if they miss a game, they can run a lineup with Austin Reeves, D'Angelo Russell, Jared Vanderbilt, Rui Hachimura, and Jackson Hayes. And that lineup is good enough to beat the bad teams in the NBA, which means they can buy rest games in between for opportunities for those guys to play. Again, I know there's a lot of Lakers pessimism, but don't overthink it. They literally, without LeBron James, finished the season with the second best record in the league post deadline, like, without LeBron, meaning just standard NBA run of the mill average shot creators mixed with Anthony Davis equals W's. Like, that's the Lakers. And so when you factor in that, like, they can afford for LeBron and AD to both miss 20 games, when you factor in that they do have shot creation up and down the roster, they got deeper at forward with Taurean Prince, so they can afford to trade one of their forwards or have one out of the lineup and it not be a big deal. Last year, if Rui missed a game, it was catastrophic. Last year, if LeBron missed a game, it was catastrophic because they didn't have any forwards. Like, they have forward depth now. Jackson Hayes is a better backup center than anybody they played last year. I'm not as high on Christian Wood as everyone else is. I don't think he's a very good basketball player. But, like, at the end of the day, like, I think the Lakers are going to be fine in the regular season. I think they're going to win probably right around 50 games and be right in that 2, 3, 4 range of the standings. It's the playoffs where it's like, dude, if they run into Denver, they're just going to lose. Like, that's where I feel. So
you think Denver's the only team you would pick to beat them in the playoffs?
I would pick the Lakers over everybody in the West, but I'd pick them to lose to Denver, like confidently. Like I just think they'd lose. The only thing that would make me feel better is if LeBron James and Anthony Davis both shot way better from the field this year.
Well, I
Because
think
if they
LeBron's
defend
39, man. Yeah.
No, I know. It's a lot to ask. I think it's a lot to
Right.
ask. And now, because here's the thing, like the Nuggets also shot above their normal shot value in that series. Like Jamal Murray's Western Conference Finals against the Lakers was freaking unbelievable. Like it was historically great. Even Jokic's shot making was historically great in that series. So like my thing is like the case for the Lakers beating the Nuggets is you need both Jokic and Murray to shoot more towards like their normal averages, and you need LeBron James and Anthony Davis to somehow shoot a lot better than they normally do. It's just a lot to ask. And so like for me, I have a really hard time thinking the Lakers are going to beat Denver unless they make some sort of significant roster improvement, or I just see vintage 2020 Anthony Davis, which is just, I don't know that that's going to happen, man. And like, now here's the one thing I'd say is Jokic kicked his ass so bad in that series, like utterly embarrassed him for the world to see on both ends of the floor. Like do you remember the AD ISOs against Jokic in that series? They were not good.
I think he held him to 40% shooting. Yeah.
Yeah. And a big part of that was AD can't make a damn jump shot. But like the point is like AD got embarrassed in that series. Maybe that motivates him to get better. Right? Like that's the case. But look at all those what ifs I just dropped on you, man. Like I'll tell you, as someone who roots for the Lakers, I do not feel good about our chances to beat the Nuggets.
Well, here's the thing I'll say. I think the Suns, again, I hear you on the pull-up shooting stuff, but I think that's the thing, is they're so freaking good at it. And if you play drop coverage versus the Suns consistently, then they can murder you 4 out of 7 chances. I think that's the thing about them. But even, again, with the Suns, everybody brings up those 2 games. Well, yeah, they did it versus the Clippers, but the Clippers, obviously, by the way, I truly believe, I don't actually believe this, but I truly believe it. It's one of those 2 things. I think Ty Lue sabotaged the Clippers when he put Kawhi Leonard at the 5, with Bones Highland, Russell Westbrook, Eric Gordon, and it was Norman Powell. They ran that. They were up 10. That was their 5-man unit in the third quarter, and they lost the game off that one quarter. I fully believe that Ty Lue sabotaged that series versus them. I fully believe it.
He's too much of a believer in small ball.
Here's the thing. I think the Suns, it might take, again, Devin Booker shot 80% over a 2-game sample size. It was 20 of 25 and 14 of 18. And then they had crazy shooting from their tertiary players. They won by 7 and won by 4. They won by 7 and 4 in 2 games they won. And they got demolished in every game by double digits. So I think they can do that versus the Lakers. The problem is Austin Reeves, LeBron, AD, Rui pull up, Gabe Vincent, and then I think Max Christie is going to end up being the best player off that bench maybe as the season goes on, as he gets older and more used to playing. Again, even Jared Vanderbilt defense, and then able to have Christian Wood hit shots here, and there. Maybe he locks in defensively, can be a good help side defender. Again, I'm not banking on that, but possibility. Jackson Hayes, whatever. Like, they have, like, some pieces around them to, like, become something. But, man, I think the Suns are just going to be a nightmare. Again, if Judah's hitting threes one game, if Nasir Little's hitting threes one game, Eric Gordon's hitting pull-up threes one game, wave after wave after wave of shooting. But the problem is, as you said, I don't love their size. I don't love their defense. And I'm not afraid of them at all as the game gets more physical as it goes on. So I do think the Lakers could win that matchup, but I think that'd be a fun 7-game series.
All of them would be. Like, again, those top 6 teams, anybody can beat anybody. Right. Like, I really do believe that. Like, I could see all 6 of those teams winning the title, including Golden State, by the way. It's on the table. They're definitely at the bottom of that list, but I think they could. Again, like, they won the title less than 2 years ago with the same core 6 guys. So, and here's the thing. Again, it's so easy to be like, they got lucky, but so did the Nuggets, so did the Bucks, so did the Lakers, so did the Raptors, so did, like, everyone gets lucky.
Jason,
everyone gets lucky.
It's the same thing you brought up. I don't know if I trust what they have around Steph more and enough to beat Braun and them, to beat KD and Booker, and then subsequently to beat Denver. So they would have to go through two of those 3 teams
potentially
in order to make. Right. Or the Clippers. If the Clippers are healthy, put them in there. They would have to go through 2 of those 4 teams, and then Boston, and then the Bucks or whatever. And again, there's always a variant. The Heat could shoot crazy, 49% again, all that other stuff. But for me, where they are right now, as currently constructed, I just have a hard time seeing them be able to do that. And I know Warriors fans are going to hear this and think that's somehow about Steph. It ain't about Steph.
It ain't about Steph.
Everybody else on that roster.
Yeah. No, I get it. And like, again, the reason why I can't count them out is like, I agree with you. Like the chances of them navigating their way out of that mess are extremely slim. But like sometimes you get lucky from the standpoint of matchups. Like what if Phoenix catches Minnesota and like Minnesota just drops this crazy point of attack performance that throws them into, because they actually can match up down the line. Like, oh, Jaden's going to guard KD. We could put, or maybe Kyle Anderson guards KD, and Jaden McDaniels guards Devin Booker, and Anthony Edwards guards Bradley Beal.
Alexander Walker.
Or Nikhil Alexander Walker. Exactly. What if they lock him up and then Ant just has like a throwback, like LeBron 2007 performance and then beats them? And then the Wolves run into someone else and lose. And then like all of a sudden, all the things break. And then it's Warriors Nuggets in the conference finals. And they didn't have to face the Lakers or the Suns by some fluky thing. Because maybe the Nuggets beat the Suns 1-4 because the Nuggets beat the Lakers 1-4 because the Lakers drop in the standings a little bit. And then suddenly it's a bad matchup for Denver and Steph hits half of his pull-up threes. And next thing you know, the Warriors are in the finals. Like it's just, you can't count it out because that's the kind of shit that happens.
I think we disagree. And I did, and Adam Mata is a DNVR. I'm sure you know who Adam is. He's been locked out awesome. As well. Yeah. I don't think that the Warriors are their worst matchup. I personally don't. I just don't. They're too small. Kevon Looney, by the way, I just want to be clear, cannot play in that series. If you give them a 5 that can't score at all and he can't defend Joker, then literally they're just going to be sitting in the paint and whatever. It's like, for me, I think that the Lakers, I think the Suns, I would probably put both of those teams above the Warriors as currently constructed right now. For me right now, I think Jamal Murray, bro. If Jamal Murray had to target CP3 and Steph Curry and Clay, and those were the main defenders, and he's getting Andrew Wiggins and stuff off of him. They're running like these Spain pick and rolls or these Iverson cuts or these little back doors or inverted pick and roll, or he's bringing Draymond out, and now Jokic has, I don't know, Looney or Clay or whoever, and then you got a double or Kuminga. And they're getting butchered. And Aaron Gordon, and think about this, if Aaron Gordon and Michael Porter Jr. are in this series, which obviously hopefully they would be, yeah, then they're also going to, whoever the smaller matchup is, worse than they did the Lakers. So for me, it's like I think they would score, but I actually think that the Lakers, what they have and what the Suns have, would probably be a more difficult matchup because of all the options they can throw at them.
Yeah, I think they're clearly better teams. Again, it's more just I think you need real pull-up shooting to beat Denver.
Respect Gabe Vincent.
I don't think Gabe Vincent's that guy. Yeah, hard pass. I like Gabe Vincent. I think he's a solid player. I think he's fine for the Lakers, but I don't think he's the guy that's going to pull the Nuggets into rotation consistently. But yeah, it's more just I believe Steph is one of the few guys I think that could really cause some problems for Steph and Dame in particular are two of the guys that I think could cause some serious problems for Denver's defense. That I guess that'll be my last question for you. Like out of the teams in the West, out of teams in the East, did the Dame trade or the Drew trade give you any pause on like, okay, if we face them in a series? Because I know you're a really confident Nuggets fan, as you should be, defending champion. As I said, me, non-Nuggets fan, thinks the Nuggets are the favorite. So we're on the same page. But given the amount of confidence that you have, did the Dame trade or the Drew trade shake that up for you at all? Or do you still feel like you could beat those guys?
Yeah, I think I've seen Dame a lot. I think people have this. Okay, to be fair, I've seen Dame at his high points. I've also seen him not so great in the playoff setting. So Dame, 55, 10, easy. Obviously, Giannis, Chris Middleton, Brook Lopez, Bobby Portis, Marjon Beauchamp, and then Pat Connaughton. A huge gap. But here's the thing about the Celtics. Drew Holiday, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Kristaps Porzingis.
Who's been awesome. Porzingis has looked awesome in preseason.
Right. And he was really good last year at the Wizards. So I would probably say, like, because of the big lineup, they would probably try to do what the Lakers did with Rui, to have a better big pairing than the Lakers did. I think, Jason Tatum has proven time and time again that he is a playoff rider, especially game sevens. Uh, obviously not versus the Heat, but, he had a hurt ankle. But before that,
Yeah,
51 points.
if it's not Jimmy or Steph, he's good.
Right, exactly. So I think the Celtics probably would be. And here's the thing about the Bucks, man. If you don't have POA defenders versus the Nuggets aren't scared of your interior defense because they're going to pull you out of there. And so Giannis and Brook, you're just not going to be as effective. But because down the line, from Drew to Derek, all the way now to Kristaps and Jason, they just have defenders all over the place, and they have enough shooting, I think, to make you work. The problem is that whatever you think Damian Lillard's going to do offensively, he's probably, of all the stars in the playoff setting, would you agree that if we're talking top 12 players, is Damian Lillard the worst defender of any player in the top 12?
He is, so, but he is, but I think there's a difference between being a bad defender and a guy who's playing bad defense. And and a lot of it has to do with what your team needs from you. So for instance, like LeBron in 2018, that team was never going to be a great defensive team. They just wanted to outscore people. So LeBron devoted all of his energy to offense, had one of his worst defensive regular seasons, but had this incredible offensive run, which was what was best for that team. And by the way, it got them closer to a championship than they would have gotten otherwise, right? Then 2020, an older version of LeBron has an all-defense caliber season in 2020 because that team had a defensive identity. And one of the ways he could help that team was by committing to the defensive end. And they had enough ball handling with Rajon Rondo and with Anthony Davis to not need him to be as involved offensively as he was with the 2018 Cavs. That's the way I look at the Dame thing. Like, has he been playing really bad defense over the years in Portland? Yes. Did it make any sense for him to devote his resources to point of attack defense when he was literally the offensive engine for an offensive-minded team? That was their best bet. So, like, I'm not saying he's going to go into Milwaukee and be a good defender, but give him a chance in a defensive culture and a team that's going to have a chance to actually get stops and that being a part of their identity. He's a good athlete who's stocky and strong and slides his feet well. Don't be surprised if he's capable of being a functional defender in that system.
Well, I think the problem is he's still going to be the same person. He's still going to be 6'1". He's not going to have the best horizontal speed when it comes to playing defense. He's not going to be a good screen navigator. And then so even just
you don't think he could? You don't think he could be a good screen navigator if he put the work in?
I mean, this thing she's like Dame was born.
He's stocky and athletic.
He was born 8 days before me. He's 33 years old. I just don't trust that he is going to end up becoming a better screen navigator defender. Now he could give more effort, but effort's not going to overcome physical limitations. So if you're playing versus Jamal or Steph or Bron or whoever or Kawhi or PG, and then we're navigating off of Ivica Zubac or navigating off of Nikola Jokic or navigating off of Anthony Davis or we're navigating off of Draymond Green and Kevon Looney, then I think because of the sheer size of those big men, him navigating and getting around, playing versus, by the way, drop coverage, because that's what the Bucks are playing, because they're not switching. I think they could get murdered offensively by some team, because I think especially if you come out of the Western Conference, you're already going to have played better competition throughout the entire year. Your Western Conference is going to be a gauntlet in the playoff. And then let's just say the Lakers make it. The Lakers will have to be Jokic, Steph, Kawhi, whoever else. And by the time they get there, they're like, look, we have maybe the easiest matchup in a backcourt that we've seen all playoff. Now, Pat Connaughton not doing nothing for me. Anthony Davis and all that, we're running through these people. And on top of that, I just think that, like, here's what I'll say. I'm a little, for me, I think the Eastern Conference has proved it for me. Because they just haven't looked good. And when they played Steph, they got cooked. When they played Bron, they got cooked. When they played Jokic, they got cooked. So you play one of these dogs out of the West, you just don't have the animal to be able to get it done, and like the horses and all this other stuff. So, we'll see. We'll see for sure. But I do think
we're on the same page. I have the Nuggets. I think the Nuggets are clearly the team that we should all believe in more than Milwaukee and Boston. Like, I think they're interesting moves, but it's all theoretical basketball at this point. And you're right. Like, we can't just book Dame being a good defender. I think he's capable of being a decent defender in Milwaukee, but you can't just book that. Whereas, like, we know what Denver can do. I think you put that perfectly. Like Denver is obviously going to be the safer bet.
Lakers Suns and Lakers Suns Warriors, but especially Lakers Suns, you wouldn't put them in a matchup versus the Bucks.
I think the Lakers. I think the Lakers and Suns are basically on the same tier with Milwaukee and Boston. I think they both have some theoretical elements too, right? Like the theoretical element with Milwaukee is their point of attack defense. The theoretical element with Boston is their late game execution. The theoretical element with the Lakers is late game execution. And the theoretical element with Phoenix is their defense and rebounding and their ability to make their pull-up jump shots, right? They all have question marks. And so, like, I don't think any one of them has a significant edge over the others. Denver, there's not anything theoretical about it because they just won the damn trophy. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, like, that's where I kind of separate those two. But at the same time, I don't think Denver has a monumental advantage over any of them. And I wouldn't be surprised if Denver lost to any of them.
Unless Jimmy Butler gets traded to Denver, which I've been predicting for 3 years now. But
God, if that happens,
I know. Or how would you feel about this? Because there's been kind of through the wire a little bit. Because Toronto is in the process of maybe having to blow it up at the deadline. How would you feel if Pascal went to Denver for MPJ and like Peyton?
I think there's a delicate balance with Denver with their offensive construction, and I mean this in a good way. This is where I say injuries can have a downside.
Right.
I think if you downgrade one of the Nuggets starters to a league average player at their position, that they would overnight become a lot easier to guard. Mm-hmm. So the beauty with the Nuggets is like every single one of their 5 core players fits so perfectly with the others that they actually are able to achieve a sum greater than the whole of their parts, right? So, or a whole greater than the sum of their parts. So, like, if you downgrade KCP, for instance, to Justin Holiday because KCP gets hurt, I think the Nuggets become a lot easier to guard. Mm-hmm. If you downgrade Aaron Gordon to Zeke Naji, I think they become a lot easier to guard. If you downgrade Michael Porter Jr. to, Justin Holiday, I think they become a lot easier to guard. So like and obviously if Jamal Murray goes down, they instantly become a non-championship contender. So literally every one of these teams is precariously hanging on the balance because that's the parity, right? Like none of these teams is good enough to be able to withhold a significant injury to one of their core 5 players, like because none of them are significantly above the rest of the field. And again, like I think Nuggets fans a lot of times attribute, and this is not their fault. This is kind of basketball culture. Right. Like, oh, Jokic does everything. Like I saw this chart yesterday. It was like, look at the career paths of KCP and Aaron Gordon versus, I think the other 2 were Will Barton and Monty Morris. And like Will Barton and Monty Morris went down and KCP and Aaron Gordon went up. And like, I'm like, Monty Morris and Will Barton went to the freaking Washington Wizards, man. What did you expect they were going to go over there and like just start winning? You know what I mean? Like, and like Aaron Gordon went from a terrible Orlando Magic team to playing with the best player in the world. KCP went from playing with a terrible Wizards team to playing with the best player in the world. Of course, their impact and winning went up. And like, my point is like, all of these things are intricately connected. I have seen Steph Curry miss the damn playoffs because of a couple of mismatching role players and a lack of Klay Thompson, right? I have seen LeBron James miss the damn playoffs the year before he made the conference finals because of a misfit at point guard and a couple of weird role players. Like these concoctions are so delicate and like everything hangs on a hair. And the truth of the matter is like all of these teams are susceptible to one small tweak that throws off the equation and makes them easier to guard. If you were able to guard the 2-man game for the Nuggets 3-on-2, it instantly becomes easier to guard. You can't, though, because of Michael Porter Jr., because of KCP, and because of Aaron Gordon, one of the very few players in the league that can be a plus offensive player as an average shooter. Like, he's unique. If you downgrade any one of those guys, let's just take Aaron Gordon to Zeke Naji, for example. Instantaneously, you become more capable of guarding the Jokic-Murray 2-man game 3-on-2. Mm-hmm. Because Aaron Gordon to Zeke Naji is a significant downgrade. Mm-hmm. That if you can guard at 3-on-2, you have a much better chance of surviving. See what I'm saying? So like,
Yeah.
it's always a delicate balance. No different than like if Austin Reeves went down for the Lakers, suddenly all your shot creation falls to D'Angelo Russell, who was a 0 in conference finals last year, and Anthony Davis and LeBron, who are super inconsistent as jump shooters. See how everything is like so delicate? Like that's kind of my point. Like no team is invulnerable to this stuff.
Right. Yeah, well, Jason, this has been a fun conversation. This has been our longest conversation. We got an hour and 40 minutes into all this, man. I just want to say I appreciate the content. Hoops Tonight is one of the best shows, NBA shows you can find on YouTube or any platform. I told you this already, but I think your top 20 that you did the top 25, I think, playoff runs of all time that you did early this year. You ranked all the players in the NBA. I mean, the content you put out in the summer was all excellent, man. And I know you put crazy hours into all that stuff. And there were even, when you did that, there were even some runs that I had like forgotten about that you put in there. And I was just like, what a pull. And I was like, I can't believe like I forgot that even happened or whatever else, man. So the content you're making is A1, bro. And I know you probably hear it in your comments, but wanted you to hear it live, man. I think what you're doing is great, and I think you have a really, really bright future in this game, like for real. And I know that even this audience that hears you all the time and then hears you on this channel, man, they all love you a lot too, man. So I think you have a lot of respect around the NBA community as a whole, bro. So I know you probably know that, but I hope you feel it, especially like when you're in other environments and stuff like that.
Well, I really appreciate it, man. The bottom line is I freaking love talking about basketball. And so the hour and 40 minutes is easy because we're just talking hoops, man. And like,
right.
Also like, I think this is such a great time for us to be covering the league because it's ascending with talents, it's ascending in interest. And I'm not sure if you've told your listeners, but we're planning on doing this like once a month this year. So I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be exciting.
Yeah. So I haven't told anybody yet, so yeah, man, it's real. We're going to do once a month shows, basically going to do a recap of everything that's happened in the month, all the top storylines, all that. Jason is the heavy hitter, man. So that way, whenever we have a conversation, man, we'll make sure we're talking about all the big stuff, bro. But I appreciate you, man. And obviously, can you let people know where to find you, social media, YouTube, all that stuff?
Yeah, you guys can find me on social media. Just look up my name, Jason Timpf. And then my show, right now we're on the Volumes YouTube feed, but we're actually going to move over to our own YouTube feed probably in the next week or so. So just look for Hoops Tonight on YouTube. And I believe our podcast feed is under Hoops Tonight as well. But that's just about it. You can find me on all social media platforms, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, etc. So
hey, and by the way, feel free if you want to tell people about your Star Wars show and stuff too. We got a lot of Star Wars fans in here, bro.
Star Wars podcast, Two Sons podcast, TWOSUNS. It's a play on our hometown, Tucson. But my buddy Luke and I, we break down Star Wars and some other mainstream fantasy content like that. But we just actually recorded this morning a little Ahsoka recap. So yeah, you can find that wherever you get your podcast under Two Sons Podcast.
Yeah, no, bro. So again, even last year before the Lakers series, I called the Nuggets versus Lakers the rebellion versus the Empire. So, bro, they fully lean into this stuff on here.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but y'all know what time it is. Follow me, Swipa on Twitter. Make sure you like, share, let people know where you like getting your favorite NBA content at. Y'all, hey, we'll see y'all on the other side. NBA season is back.